Oil spills don't happen when the sun shines. They happen 24/7.
Space data can be overwhelming. How does AI help?
9 out of 10 times it happens with computer vision, machine learning, deep learning models we deploy. So every information that is extracted from your task data happens within 5 minutes.
The Uber Eats of Earth observation.
How do they know this data is legit? How do we know it's not tampered with? How do you know it's satellite data?
Shankar Sivaprakasam, entrepreneur and founder of EarthEye Space.
I didn't think that was a possibility until I generated a gold mine myself using ChatGPT. People actually thought it was a real gold mine. Myanmar disaster happened 6 months ago. We made our platform available to Myanmarese authorities. I think from memory we made 10 taskings complementary towards the disaster response. Select operators decided that where you could task and not task. That happens today. It's the country which is regulating them. When Uber came along, they had so much issues in every country, right? From the government to taxi companies up in arm against them. When conflicts happen, people get situational awareness from those conflict areas. From what might be embargoed areas, we host every country satellite. 50% of our customers are defense, and lots of governments have their satellites on our platform. If only certain set of people or countries and organizations had access to this capability, then it's their narrative. Everybody else goes with that narrative because that's the only narrative. The fastest week anywhere possible, you can do that within 3 to 4 hours on the platform. The nirvana state is 10 minutes. Pick up something, geolocate some signals still coming out of that vessel that went dark, and then queue up, whether it's imaging sensor, optical or thermal, whatever. That workflow where the handoff to queuing sensor happens to another satellite, we go multi-domain. You can only make an impact with scale. Otherwise, you're a cottage business. To make a global impact, you have to scale, and you have to scale fast.
So I want to touch on how you handle the security and ethics side. Okay, with growing geopolitical sensitivity around satellite data, how does EarthEye Space ensure data security and compliance across jurisdictions? And how do you use any encryption or watermarking techniques to prevent misuse?
Data is always owned by the operator. It's never owned by the customer. They have license rights to use the data exclusively if that's what they want, or for which you pay for it if you want exclusive use of the data. Otherwise, the data gets sold to the second person as an archive. That's a business model of Earth observation in terms of the operators. Ensuring that only the licensed user of the data use the data and it doesn't go beyond is something we need to, be cognizant of. You can put these contracts and end user license agreements, as they are called, EULAs as they are called, in place to sort of deter people, but it still happens. So to be aware of that, and to then use technologies to ensure there's no misuse of that. That's such misuse. That's one consideration. Encryption is given, data is encrypted. The provenance. So the emerging theme today is the provenance of data in the context of Gen AI. So I did today we have discussions with customers and prospects that worry about how do they know this data is legit, that is being delivered. How do we know it's not tampered with? How do you know forget tampering. How do you know it's satellite data? It's, right. So I didn't realize. I know tampering is something that we needed to be aware of and to avoid, and we have methods of ensuring that that if somebody were to tamper the data, that there's some red alarms. But this part about I generated image through Gen AI and LLMs, and then that will look very close to a satellite data, and then I won't know the difference. I didn't think that was a possibility until I generated a gold mine myself using ChatGPT plus version. I think it was GPT-5, and then I posted it on LinkedIn as a use case or some mining use case. But I used this image. People actually thought it was a real gold mine. A number of them thought it was a real gold mine in some part of the world. So that brought that concern home for me to say, provenance is a problem moving forward. So we have to start thinking about how to ensure provenance from the source to delivery, so that these concerns or these practices that are possible today, synthetic data or generated data, is not mistaken for real data.
Yeah. So what's your take on ethical side or ethical use of satellite data, particularly when monitoring sensitive areas like indigenous land or disaster zones?
The easy part is when there is a disaster, it's given that satellites and data should be available. We had, for example, when the Myanmar disaster happened a few months ago, 6 months ago, we made our platform available to Myanmarese authorities or any NGOs working in Myanmar. I think from memory, we made 10 taskings complimentary. So they could task up to 10 times using any number of different sensors towards the disaster response, right? So that's the bit of the CSR or think we do. And there are a lot of operators who do likewise. Under UN Charter, they will make their data available for a period of time, as you may know. Then there is this thing about conflicts. So being the accessible platform, accessibility doesn't mean just easy to access satellites. It also means ensuring that you are able to access without tripping over any legalities or any legal issues, right? So to put this simply, if there was a world where the operators said, select operators decided that where you could task and not task, that happens today, right? So, and that is happening today not just because it's an operator decision. Most of the time, it's the country which is regulating them. So, country makes a decision. This is how they're going to regulate. Then the operators have no choice but to follow, because they're flagged in that country, right? Their satellites are flagged from that country. So, but we are Uber. We are not that taxi company in country A, a taxi company in country B, a taxi company in country C, who are regulated by those, right? We are those rebellious Uber. If you remember Uber, right? Now it's all taken for granted. But when Uber came along, they had so much issues in every country, right? From the government to taxi companies up in arm against them. But today we don't hear about that much. It's become very normalized talent. That's the journey when we started. But now we are in that similar position. When conflicts happen, if somebody wanted to access over an area of interest, it is possible on our platform. And it happened repeatedly as some of the conflicts that happened very recently and continue to happen. People get situational awareness from those conflict areas, from what might be embargoed areas for some operators because of those countries. Being a choice platform we are, with satellite from every country in the world that has a satellite, except if you're under UN sanctions. So if you're under UN sanctions, you can't get on our platform either as a customer or a provider. Otherwise, we host every country satellite. And that gives choice to our customers.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So that's how we do it. So we follow the rules of every country. Every country which has licensed their satellites, commercial or government, but we'll start from top down UN. So just to put some more color to this, you could be a country where you are sanctioned by maybe the Western world, but the Middle and the Eastern world are friends with you, right? Or the South, right? Or the global South and is friends with you. They don't have a problem. So what then happens on our platform, when this country gets on the platform, because they are not under UN sanctions, as a country, as government, as business, it just some entities maybe, and some just have blanket. It's all geopolitics and other issues. We stay neutral. We just follow the rules as defined. So when this country or this customer gets on the platform after being KYC'd, it said it's very easy to get a bank account and very difficult to get an account on EarthEye we also know that we have turned away several customers who managed to get account with the operators individually, but they couldn't get an account on our platform. So those are also the good stories, which is why 50% of our customers are defense and lots of governments have their satellites on our platform. But coming back to this, a country that couldn't access certain country satellites on our platform could access other country satellites. So the point I'm making is the platform is configurable. Every satellite is used as a resource. So think of it as access controlled. So everything is access controlled. So for this customer, certain resources are access controlled out, certain are enabled. So they may not see 500 plus satellites, they may see 100 satellites. So that's how, so again, this goes back to our mission, accessibility.
Yeah.
Right? Accessibility just can't be a word. It has to be real. But it also has to work within the governance and the rules and regulations. So that's how we make it happen.
It's interesting. Yeah. Beyond this tech and data, there's the human side, the people and leadership behind EarthEye Space. You have led teams across India, Australia, Singapore, and beyond. I imagine that global perspective really influences your leadership take. What does a typical day look like for you as a founder leading a deep space tech startup, and how have your experiences across Australia, India, and global ecosystems shaped your leadership style?
It's a long question.
Yeah, because you are in India, Australia, Singapore.
Yeah. I think it's my background before coming to work in space and also found the company. Like I mentioned earlier, I worked across multiple multinationals and startups from the Valley as well, Silicon Valley, California. So being exposed to different cultures and doing business in different geographies. So I think that part was probably much easier. The challenging part is sometimes setting up business in certain countries. Sometimes it's easier said than done. So until you do it, you don't see some of the challenges you face with. So we, today we have those presence in those countries you mentioned. I think the part that you mentioned, what's in a day in a life of Shankar is like it's usually about 3 to 4 hours sleeps in the 24-hour right? So that's about 3 to 4 hour. And Divya, my colleague, who just recently joined as a operations lead. Until she came along, as a founder, building the product, I still build the product, own the product, revenue, scaling the team, and while doing all the administration and operations, not in one jurisdiction, but multiple jurisdictions. So It was crazy. To have bitten more than we could chew was really crazy. But we had to do it because the scaling and the requirements and the circumstances meant we had to do it, right? So we had to be in Singapore for certain reasons. Some of the reasons would be because of what I just said a few minutes ago. We have to maintain neutrality and accessibility for everyone. So it needs to be in a neutral country.
Yes.
Right? So there's a reason why Trump and Kim Jong-un met in Singapore and not anywhere else. It's a very neutral country, right? So there were lots of considerations that went in deciding our locations where we want to be present and will continue to be present, which also meant there's a multiplier on the operations and administration. So as a founder, that can take away a lot of your time and energy. So until you have an operations person you can offload a lot of that too, and so you focus back on what you really want to focus, which is scaling the business through product and customers. So that's what it's been. It's getting better. Like I said, we just crossed double digits very recently. Until then, we were a single digit team. Nobody could believe it. So we punch above our weight, and
it's amazing. Yeah, let's zoom out for a moment. From the individual to the planet, how does space tech like EarthEye Space truly serve Earth itself? So the name EarthEye Space speaks to a bigger mission, using space for Earth. How do you see satellite technology helping us tackle global challenges like climate change and sustainability?
It's going to sound a bit philosophical, but again comes to accessibility. If only certain set of people or countries and organizations had access to this capability, then it's their narrative. Everybody else goes with that narrative because that's the only narrative.
Yeah.
Right. The world today is all about people's narratives.
Narratives, yeah.
So how do you make sure you can have your own narrative? Whether you are passionate about sustainability, climate change, because vested interests will always want you to believe their narrative, assuming they are vested. So when we built this capability, we said two things. The vision is to make a world a transparent and a fairer place. That's our vision. To make the world a transparent and fairer place. How do you make that as a mission? To make situational awareness from space easy. By making situational awareness from space easy, you make world a transparent, fairer place because you enable accessibility for everyone, 2% and their pet. And we do have customers with their 2% and their pet, startups and small businesses, to very large defense agencies. It's a very vast spectrum, right? So it really depends on what your motivation is, right? What your interest is. You should be able to use space to have that situational awareness on Earth, regardless of what motivates you.
That's a bold vision. And it really captures the heart of why we explore space in the first place. And you often speak about democratizing satellite data. Which industries or communities do you think will benefit most from this accessibility, and why does that matter?
If you see our tagline is to see, to know, right? So you said EarthEye means something bold and big vision. It is in the sense it's eye on Earth, and to know you need to be able to see, right? Because to know based on somebody seeing is problematic, right? So you have to see to know. And that transcends every every entity, every organizations, every business, every government, and so forth. So, So I don't know if there's any other reason for other than just that.
Yeah,
Just that.
I think accessibility is everything, and it's great to see how innovation can empower everyone, not just the big players. How is Australia uniquely positioned to lead in the global swift towards space for Earth innovation?
Australia geographically has some very good advantages, right? Clear skies most of the time. You have the ability to put ground stations to be able to downlink data, which will increase the latency of not just the data but also information. So I think those are the benefits. There's also there's a startup ecosystem that's looking at building satellites to turning satellite data into information and so forth. So I always compare because we are in both countries. Obviously India, but India has a very different heritage, right, with ISRO and satellites, and that's given. Indian situation has been it was a closed industry, only controlled by government. In the last 5 to 10 years, it's opened up now, and you have the new space initiatives, and every other day there's an innovation in that country. But if you compare Singapore versus Australia, it's very interesting. Singapore is a very tiny country. It's a city-state, but it is a spacefaring nation, right? It's got lots of different satellites, whether it's optical, SAR, and so forth, right? And also in interesting orbits to give Singapore and the neighbors maximum revisit and coverage. But Australia, on the other hand, is not a spacefaring nation as far as owning and operating its own sovereign satellites, which is interesting, right? But it plays on the peripheral of that ecosystem in terms of companies working on software, whether for space situational awareness, or private companies launching satellites for various purposes, whether it is for refueling or whether it is for Earth observation. When I said what I said, it's mostly in the context of Earth observation. Australia does have communication satellites and geostationary orbits and so forth. No LEO capability. So that's the gap. I think there's a lot that it shows the thinking of countries in how some countries look at satellites and space as a sovereign strategic assets and capabilities, not just for security, but also for socioeconomic, like Singapore, which is also an island, to Australia, huge island, should be also concerned for similar reasons for why Singaporeans have this sovereign strategic capability, but Australia lacks that. So that tells you about the priorities, right?
Yeah. So
one would argue a country of this size would have benefited more from this capability than just relying on allies and commercial.
Yeah, I think as these systems grow more capable, the next big leap seems to be in real-time analytics, acting on information the moment it's captured.
Yep.
Do you see a future where EarthEye space uses edge computing, like processing data onboard satellites to reduce latency for urgent events like floods or wildfires? And what's your current target for near real-time insight delivery?
This is a great question. It's probably one of the better questions, and it's a very important question because this is one we grapple with. Every time I walk into, I think I mentioned this earlier in passing, saying we are not CCTV in space or sky. That's what people expect. So they expect the information now, right? So, but the physics means in LEO there is a delay, in terms of satellites coming over to your area of interest, collecting the data, need to look for a ground station next available, downlink, make it processed and delivered. What it all means, we operate across multiple tasking tiers. So with 4 different tiers, they're kind of like SLAs. So if you are tasking at the emergency tier, which means you want the data ASAP, the fastest we can deliver today, and this is the fastest, anywhere possible, better than anyone can do, unless you got direct downlink to your own ground station and so forth. That's a different architecture that comes with a different economics. But truly like an Uber model on demand without having to, break your bank, you can do that within 3 to 4 hours on the platform. But that is still 3.5 hours late. Most of the situational awareness use cases, the requirement is the information to be available under half an hour.
Okay.
The nirvana state is 10 minutes. From the capture to the information in 10 minutes. So what we are working towards now is to bring that 3 to 4 hours end to end, from tasking to collection to delivery to extraction and delivery. The extraction, information action delivery, as I mentioned, is 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. So most of the time is spent really in this loop of, tasking, scheduling it on the satellites, next available pass, and collecting, delivery, and so forth. Right? Ground station is a big issue. Some operators are reducing the latency by not waiting for ground station to downlink, but using ISLs, inter-satellite links, within their constellation. So the closest to the ground station will have the data passed on to it, so it will download. Others send it to geostationary, from the LEO to geostationary satellite, com satellite, and downlink it in KU bands. They all reduces the latency, increases the information velocity, data and information velocity, but it's still not enough to bring it down to that 10 minutes, right? So one of the, because that just reduces the data latency. So, I got carried away. So that downlink passes also, because you're approaching as I'm downlinking the data, expand, for example, lots of data. So I'm downlinking my expand, it's expensive. And sometimes the data is useless. You bring it down and you find it's useless. You can't use it.
Yeah.
So to your point about, can I do all of the processing on orbit and at the edge, which also means I only need to hand over small kilobytes of data to geostationary to downlink. So that will reduce the cost and increases the velocity, or reduces the time to downlink. So the short answer is we are looking at all of the above, including not relying on an operator downlink, but relying on the ground station network to downlink and pick up the data. But also prior to downlink and picking up the data is to see if we can do the inference on orbit. That's easier said than done because of number of complexities involved, the power requirements, the models, size and fit, and the type of data. Looking through an image to see whether it's cloudy or not, and if it is very cloudy, don't bother. Sending it down is different from running an oil spill detection and accurately detecting that oil spill location and area and downlinking that GeoJSON. It's easier said than done, but that's what we need to get to. So that is what will start to reduce that latency from that 3 to 4 hours to half an hour.
Interesting. The whole process is really interesting. So do you have any plans to integrate satellite data with terrestrial IoT sensors or drones for hybrid monitoring systems?
So we have this multi-domain. So tip and queue.
No.
I'll explain it. Yeah. So tip and queue is where you get. It's a military term where you get, let's say, two different satellite sensor modalities to work together. So the simplest case is, like I said, you are looking for something of interest, a needle in a haystack, and you kind of localized where that needle might be in a haystack, and then you want to now zoom in. Because the sensor with which you looked for the needle has a different characteristics. It's more broad area scan, coarser resolution, because they are, there's a trade-offs. They're correlatable in terms of resolution versus size, scene size, and so forth. So you localize what you're looking for in terms of change or observation, and then you automatically, no human in the loop, automatically cue the second sensor, which could be a different sensor modality, could be a very high resolution sensor, and so forth. So that is the typical tip and cue in terms of handshake that happens between satellites across different operators, different modalities, as the workflow gets orchestrated on EarthEye platform. It's a fully automated, orchestrated workflow. So you can tip and queue across any sensors. Dark vessel is a classic case. Vessel that switches off AIS goes dark. We can immediately tip a sensor, pick up something, geolocate some signals still coming out of that vessel that went dark, and then queue, whether it's imaging sensor, optical, SAR, thermal, whatever. So those are the tip and queue. That workflow, where the handoff to queuing sensor happens to another satellite, we go multi-domain. So it's a multi-domain architecture. So instead of queuing to another high-resolution different sensor modality satellite, you queue a drone. And the interesting and the scary part of that is you could just use that drone for imaging, or you could use that drone to attack. Right? Some weapon carrying drone.
Yeah.
So you are sending an observation from satellite that was inferred to a drone to execute a task.
Yeah.
The task doesn't have to be to sense, remote sense. The task could be to execute a different action.
Yeah, that part is really scary too.
But the point is, with software and sort of AI capabilities today, you can orchestrate these workflows.
If we can talk on building space startup, it is much about vision as it is about engineering. What were some of the biggest lessons you have learned along the way?
Fortunately, EarthEye is in downstream. If you were an upstream startup, the challenges, as you know, you're an aeronautical engineer, you'll appreciate this. It's a lot more harder. But we work with data and software and cloud, so much less technically challenging. Regulatory burden is one. In some countries, regulatory burden is one that we still need to deal with. We have a very diverse team from every different countries and languages, cultures. While it's a small team, it's also diverse. And that means it's not one size fits all.
After listening to all your explanation, I want to be part of your diverse team to learn more. I think anyone can learn more working for EarthEye Space.
I hope so. I think that's why number of them stay on. Mm-hmm. But it also has that, I was just about to say, it's not one size fits all. Sometimes I take that view, which is detrimental to growing and scaling, because the expectation is that, there is a expected, let me put it this way. Startups, in my view, fail because of not anything else, not because of, they don't have great ideas or they don't have strategies. They fail because of execution. And it's not just the execution, it's a speed of execution.
Yeah.
So that speed of execution means that there's a certain cultural expectation of how the company lives and breathes and works. But when you have folks from different walks of life and backgrounds and cultures, as much as a small team, it creates that uneasiness, right? Because there's a template that says we are executing with speed, and some can work with that. So I have a moniker for us. I call ourselves the first responders, because our culture is like it's like a first responder, right? Which means you're attentive to details. You cannot be a first responder, and if you're not attentive to details, because you'll end up killing somebody or them doing something else. But you also need to collaborate.
Yeah.
First responders don't go in by alone.
Yeah.
They all collaborate, but they're also direct. They're also very direct, right? There's no wishy-washy, right? Because you are in a life and death situation, right? Or property damage or whatever. So you collaborate while being direct. So your communication, clarity of communication, clear communication is very important. And like I said, with that comes the attention to detail and the sense of urgency. I can't have a tea and then go to have my job done. If I'm a first responder, I need to act now. So the sense of urgency. And more importantly, is the confidentiality and integrity. The work we do is highly confidential.
Yeah.
Not for us, for our customers.
Yeah.
Given, like I keep repeating, 50% of our customers are defense. That doesn't mean we are defense tech. We have lots of commercial and government customers, but we treat everybody's intent of using space situation. It doesn't matter. You're 2% and a pet, and you're a large defense agency. You get the same confidentiality from us, as well as and the highest level of integrity that I expect the team to work with. When you put all this together, sorry, it's a long-winded answer. It's not the technology or the engineering that's challenging. It is getting a small or big team to rally around this first responder mindset. It needs continuous reinforcement that we are the first responders of space and space data. We want to be able to bring, because you can't say I'm a situational awareness company and I am not behaving like a first responder.
Yeah, true. Agreed.
So there lies that balance.
So how do you balance innovation with practicality, ensuring what you build truly serves the people on the ground?
I hope how our customers use the platform and get value from it, it is serving them and their customers, right? So when a defense agency is using us to keep their borders safe, obviously that's benefiting the community. When Port Authorities is using us to detect oil spills, they are not only making sure the spills don't reach the coast, or they take action before it reaches the coast, and they have to shut down the beaches and so forth, but also keep the marine life safe, right? Not let the oil spill spread so that starts killing all the marine life. And that has a implication for humans on Earth. So I think how the platform is used, unless even I would say go as much to say, even for situational awareness around insurgency, infiltration, and you take some action based on the information available on the platform about that situation, as much as that action could be some tactical or strike or whatever, it still means that you are keeping your country and your citizens safe, right, from that bad actor, right? So whether it's national security, climate monitoring, I have this favorite client of mine, and they don't mind me saying this, is Maldivians. Among many tens of coming to 100 plus customers, they are in a particular vulnerable position because Maldives is potentially heavily impacted by climate change. It may not be around after some time. So we are used just to bring down that message about what has happened to Maldives over a time-lapse period, over a time, kind of a time machine. What's happening, how it is impacting their way of life in Maldives. So that's very impactful to be able to tell the story to the world, not just shout at these, COPs and other climate events. Whether it's Kiribati, one of the other island nations also under risk of being overrun by water and because of climate change, and so is Maldives and a few others. So how they use this data, the satellites and Earth observation data, to not just monitor what's happening regularly so that they continue to take mitigative steps, but to be able to communicate that to the global audience, so that there's some influence and there's some funding that can go towards countries as less climate fortunate as some of the others, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, that's a beautiful reminder that purpose must guide technology.
Correct.
You also mentor startups. What's one piece of advice you give to early stage founders looking to enter space tech?
Be ready to sacrifice a lot of things.
Yeah.
You will have to want to do it. There has to be a greater purpose why you're doing what you want to do, what you're doing. Ups and downs, then we'll see it through. Sometimes you wonder why you've left your 7-digit salary in a corporate life to go do something like this. But I would say, if you're passionate about something, if you see a problem, so, we didn't create another marketplace.
Yeah.
If you think about it, there was already many marketplaces before EarthEye arrived in the scene, because the problem we solve is very specific. Responsive access to space data when you want, where you want, with what sensors you want. Yeah. That is the birth of Uber for satellites. We're not a marketplace to bring archive data or occasional task data, do some analysis, prepare the data for somebody else to use it, or aggregate in the marketplace, supply side of data suppliers, analytics providers as a marketplace. Customers come along, discover these data suppliers, analytics providers, put them together, get what they want. That's a bit different model. Yeah. That works well for certain requirements and use cases and customers. But if you want information in near real time as a situation unfolds, that's a completely different proposition. So that was the gap. That was the gap that I saw existed until we were born in 2022, late 2022. And that is a very specific problem we are solving. To this day, therefore, we only do tasking and information extraction. We've been asked by some of our customers, how about giving us access to archives and historical data? In my view, currently, that's a distraction. We want to be listening to the customers and giving what they want, but we also have to balance where the mission, vision, and where the product is going, what the majority of the customers are getting value from it. Maybe down the road, we can enable that, but there's a lot we still have to achieve and deliver to that vision and mission and promise, that, and with a small team as ours, we stay focused. So coming back to your question, what would I, you said, what would I say to founder? Advice? Focus. Because it's very easy to get defocused when you're a startup, because you need to chase revenue, customers and revenue, and customers and revenue will pull you from multiple directions, and you have to be able to say no and stay true to your vision.
Yeah, that's the kind of mindset that builds lasting impact.
I hope so.
Looking 5 years ahead, where do you see EarthEye space evolving both technically and globally? Are there new missions or collaborations you're particularly excited about?
We collaborate with, all our satellite partners, the satellite operators are our collaborators, right? We also collaborate with space agencies.
Yeah.
We have an interesting relationship with space agencies. It's symbiotic in the sense that they are our customers and they're also our operator partners. Number of spacefaring nations with space agencies, either directly or through their space agencies, put their satellites on our platform for others to task. But those countries and those space agencies, again, having satellites, your own satellites is having like your own private vehicles in your driveway. Your resource is limited, right, by those 2-3 cars. Yeah. So we augment. While you drive your own car, you still call an Uber, right? The occasions demand that you call an Uber. You may cook at home. Not sure if you cook, but you may cook at home, and you still order Uber Eats. The situation may arise that you have to call. You may order Uber Eats. Same idea. So we augment with our customers augment their sovereign capability with EarthEye, Uber-like, so that they have that resilience. End of the day, it's about resilience because your vehicle could break down, right? Or if you are with some contract with some strategic operators, 1 or 2 operators you may have contracts with, geopolitics may come in the way, as Ukraine saw recently with Trump in America. So all that means you may lose your resilience. So that's why augmenting with EarthEye as Uber for satellite makes sense for these spacefaring nations, number one. Number two, 2/3 of the world doesn't have any Earth observation capability, right? When I say that, I mean space agencies, right? So there are close to 100, 80, 90 space agencies around the world, or maybe close to 100. We did some exercise some time back. 3/4 don't have any space capability. Like Australian Space Agency, right, as an example. So for those countries, we become ready-made space capability. They get access to the platform. They get 500 satellites as if it's their own.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a very quick, affordable space capability, almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
Right. So this is kind of, and they become the portal or the conduit into that country, that space agency relationship. So we have a number of African customers, African space agencies, Southeast Asian space agencies who don't have space assets themselves, rely on our platform to have that space capability. Others, that customer provide relationship. So those collaborations are very critical for us. And we continue to work on that mode with those.
That sounds like an incredible roadmap, and it's inspiring to see how you're thinking ahead. If you had to describe your vision for the future of space for Earth technology in one sentence, what would it be?
I think space for Earth has to work for Earth, right? As much as space for space also has to work. So we in that recently concluded IAC, we launched a new capability which is coming live next year, which is space observation. So right now we do Earth observation using the satellites in space, but we are also going to do space observation. So how is it different to space situational awareness, domain awareness capabilities out there? In that this Earth and space observation is available on the same platform, on the same workflow. It's a world's first to have the same workflow, do Earth observation and space observation.
Yeah.
Why do we call it space observation? Because it just goes beyond situational awareness and domain awareness to deep space astronomy. So that's around space for space. Now coming back to your question, space for Earth, we'll need to continue to developed the way it's going. But, information velocity and information from space is that currency, right? How do you get that information with the lowest latency? How do you get that that information velocity, which means you have that, not just the data when you want, where you want, with what sensors, but how do you get that information available as the situation unfolds on Earth from space? I think that's where it needs to get to. So it's not just an Earth observation problem, it's also a SATCOMS problem. So how do you marry Earth observation, because the satellites are up there, with SATCOMs, right? How do you bring the two together?
Mm-hmm.
So you sense, you infer, you deliver to Earth on a phone. So my vision is, we are talking about now satellite to phone.
Yeah.
Correct? Now imagine if I can marry what we do with Earth observation satellites in space with, let's say, whether it's Starlink or Amazon Leo, newly renamed, or anybody else who is making connectivity to not just the terminal, but also direct to cell, right?
Yeah.
As Elon is starting to do, and a couple of private companies. If you marry the two, what you sense and extract to your point of through edge, now deliver that to your phone, it's almost instantaneous.
Yeah, it is.
That's what you need.
It's amazing. And before we wrap up, let's have a little fun. A few quick fire questions to end on a light note. If you could monitor any part of Earth 24/7 with your satellites, what would it be?
There are events you need to monitor persistently, 24/7. But that may not be 24/7 forever, right? So I don't know of anything that anybody's interested to monitor 24/7. I don't know. But there are disasters, security issues, climate changing events that you must monitor persistently 24/7 for a period of time. We will call it the time of interest. That could be days, weeks, months. Absolutely. That's what we enable on the platform today.
So what's one space innovation you wish existed today?
The one I just talked about, where the comms and Earth observation can seamlessly work together in space. So what you sense and what you infer is delivered in near real time.
Yeah. So what would you choose, coffee or Cosmos? How do you start your mornings?
Oh, I was thinking, what is this question? Coffee or Cosmos?
Yeah.
There's two parts to that question. So coffee or Cosmos is easy, coffee. But how I start my morning is not coffee, it's tea. I'm Sri Lankan born, so we start the day with tea. But then you throughout the day you have coffee, and then you finish off in the evening with tea.
Tea.
Yeah.
If you could send one message to your younger self when starting EarthEye, what would it be?
Be more risk-taking. I'll tell you a quick anecdote what I mean by that. And we were selected to be at Seraphim Space Accelerator as well as CDL Space Accelerator, one of the early Asian companies that had the privilege of being part of those two great accelerators. Both of them, the feedback from great mentors and feedback from those participating in those accelerators was that you have to be a lot more open to taking other people's money and scaling. I never quite felt comfortable. So I bootstrapped. I still drive a 2007 car. So I bootstrapped, and I got it to a point when I felt comfortable with customers and revenue and proof points, and then went and raised the pre-seed. Did not raise the pre-seed with PowerPoint slides. with an idea and some plan of how we are going to execute, as I guess most people would do, as a pre-seed. My pre-seed was product in the market, number of customers, revenue, proven. Some might say that's a very risk-averse approach. You should have raised a lot more money before and just scale like crazy. Because somebody said this, and this has stayed on, very true. You can only make an impact with scale. You can only make an impact with scale. Otherwise, you're a cottage industry, a cottage business. You can stay small, build a business. It's more like a family business, but you're not making a global impact, because to make a global impact, you have to scale, and you have to scale fast. I might have done something on those. I might have done something differently. I would have felt more comfortable to take other people's money. It's also a funny thing. Even when we did the pre-seed, some of the investors, family officers, and high net worth aside, some of the investors are my friends. Some of them are my customers from year 2000. 25 years ago, they were customers of some of my good friends. If they wanted to write a check for 100,000, I would say no, just write for 50.
Oh, okay.
Because I am not sure I want to put your money at risk. So that was my early mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing.
that. I think that I might have done things differently. Yeah. Because to take that 100 and help to quadruple or 5x it quickly is probably going to be better for them and better for the business than to be concerned about, I take the 100 and it's going to go down to 0.
Yeah, that was brilliant, Shankar.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Spacefront Conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights and for inspiring us to see Earth and space through a new lens. What you and your team are doing at EarthEye Space reminds us that space isn't just about exploration. It's about responsibility. It's about using our view from above to protect what we have below. To everyone listening, don't forget to subscribe to Spacefront Conversation for more stories at the frontier of innovation, technology, and the human spirit. Until next time, keep your eyes on Earth and your dreams in space. Thank you.
That's a great finish. Thank you.